I'm Diane, Wedner, Lifescript.com. Confused about sexually transmitted diseases? Dr. Yvonne Bohn stopped by Lifescript TV studios recently to explain how they're spread. Sexually transmitted diseases are the most common infections in the U.S. today, and women are at the greatest risk. That's because women are more susceptible than men to STDs and less likely to show symptoms until it's too late. Undiagnosed STDs cause infertility in 24,000 women a year, according to new data. Even worse, most women avoid discussing STDs with their doctors. So let's have that talk, shall we? Dr. Yvonne Bohn, a Los Angeles OB-GYN and co-author of the book The Mommy Doc's Ultimate Guide to Pregnancy and Birth, is here to do just that. Good morning, Dr. Bohn.
Good morning.
I have to admit, I was surprised by that statistic. It's huge.
Yeah.
What is it about women's anatomy that makes us so susceptible to STDs?
Well, the first thing for women is all of the female organs are in the inside. And so it's a little bit harder to know that something is going on when your cervix or your ovaries are deep inside your pelvis. For a man, the penis and the testicles are on the outside, and so if they have a swelling or a discomfort or they have a discharge from their penis, it's much more obvious for them to see it. So a lot of times the symptoms are very mild. There may be a little cramp or there may be a little slight discoloration in discharge that a woman isn't aware that that's a sign there could be an infection. And a lot of times we can pick up those diseases when a woman comes in for her regular checkup and we do a screening with a pap smear and cultures.
Are women of all ages susceptible to STDs? Does it change when a woman gets older, say postmenopausally?
Unfortunately, all women are susceptible to STDs, whether you're 15 or whether you're 80. If you have intercourse with a person who has the STD, you can get infected with it. Now, the one thing about age is that younger women tend to have more frequent intercourse or potentially more partners, and so that may make her more susceptible than an older woman who's in a monogamous relationship.
So probably a monogamous relationship gives you a little bit of a safety net there.
Yes, it does. If you know that your partner is faithful and you're faithful to your partner, once two people are together and really have been faithful to each other, the likelihood of transmitting diseases to each other is much less.
Half of the people who get chlamydia don't have any symptoms. What is it about chlamydia that makes it seem to be symptomless?
I don't know the reason why there are no symptoms for chlamydia. For men, there typically are symptoms. Like I said, there's a discharge from the penis. For women, there may be just a very mild cramping, or like I said, it's just a very slight discharge. And so a woman may think that, oh, that's cramping from my menstrual cycle, or that's the way my discharge always is, and that's why she's more likely to ignore it. Once chlamydia is in the body for a while, though, and it's untreated, women can get much more severe symptoms of pelvic pain, tenderness in their pelvis, or pelvic masses, so they can get infections in their fallopian tubes, and that's how chlamydia causes infertility.
Is there a particular symptom that a woman should be looking at that says, uh-oh, I better go to the doctor?
I would say cramping or discomfort unrelated to the menses or an abnormal discharge would be things to be worried about, or any type of abdominal pelvic pain could be a symptom of more advanced chlamydia.
Some STDs have symptoms that certainly could be common in other diseases or conditions that women might have. What would be some of those symptoms that you might get confused about?
Okay, so itching, vaginal itching is a symptom of a few diseases. Most women, when they have itching, they think they have a yeast infection. And so a lot of times a woman will go and buy an over-the-counter medication and assume everything that itches down there is yeast and try to treat it with a yeast cream. But some other diseases have itching. HPV can present as itching. Herpes can present as an itchy lesion, and other types of vaginal infections can present with itching. So some are STDs, chlamydia, gonorrhea, or trichomonas, but also bacterial vaginosis, which is not specifically an STD, but is another bacterial vaginal infection that can cause itching.
My head's spinning.
I know. It's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of diseases.
So how does a woman know when, okay, this is the one where I better call the doctor and get in there?
What we tell women for yeast is that typically a yeast infection, there will be itching, burning, swelling of the vulva associated with a thick white discharge. If you have those symptoms for the first time, it's worthwhile to see the doctor and have the appropriate diagnosis made. If you really have a yeast infection and it's been confirmed by a doctor and you have another infection that seems similar, then you can treat it over the counter. But I would say any abnormal discharge, any new itching, any new lesions that you feel in your vulva, you should not self-treat. You should get the diagnosis confirmed by a doctor.
Okay, and so to get these STDs checked or taken care of at the earliest possible time, you look for those symptoms, and that's when you
would be evaluated, but also when we do just your routine gynecological exam, if you are not married, if you have had a different sex partner in the last year, we as a gynecologist, when we're doing the pap smear, we can collect for chlamydia, gonorrhea, trichomonas, diseases that can be asymptomatic that you may not know that you have, just when we're collecting the cells for the pap smear.
And then you also go back sometimes and check them a few months later to make sure that they're clear.
If you have an infection, for example, if a woman has chlamydia, I treat the woman with antibiotics. I ask that her partner be treated or any potential partner be treated, and then have her come back for what we call a test of cure in 2 weeks to make sure that the disease is eradicated.
Good. So at least they can have that
peace of mind.
For a little while.
Yeah.
Okay. And HPV is the most common STD. Why is that? What is it about HPV that makes it so widespread?
Okay, well, human papillomavirus, or HPV, is the virus that we know causes cervical cancer. It's responsible for 90% of the cases of cervical cancer, and it's also responsible for genital warts. HPV is very prevalent. 80% of the sexually active population has HPV. The problem with HPV is that most men are asymptomatic carriers, so they carry the disease, but they don't have any symptoms or disease problems from it. And a lot of the disease is carried silently from person to person. HPV can now be detected with a pap smear. We can collect the cells from the cervix and identify if a person has HPV or not. So the first step is identifying the people who have it and then stopping them from giving it to other people.
So should women, if you have a new sexual partner, have a checklist?
They
Please,
should.
excuse me, could you just check
They
this
should.
off? Really?
Basically, if you're starting a new relationship with someone, and especially if you're considering not using condoms with that partner, it's worthwhile to be screened for chlamydia, gonorrhea, trichomonas, hepatitis B, hepatitis C, HIV, herpes.
So I was joking, but you're saying this is for real. If you have a sexual partner, to say, I'd like you to please get tested for these and show me the evidence.
Yeah, I do think that's important. Also, unfortunately for men, we cannot test men for HPV. So that is the one test the man cannot go to the doctor and say, I want to get an HPV test because I want to have sex without a condom with my new partner. You have to assume that every sex partner that you're with will have HPV.
Okay, so women have a lot to worry about. Now we put pregnancy into the mix. Can pregnant women pass STDs onto their fetuses, to their babies?
Absolutely. Pregnant women can pass STDs to their babies. And so a big part of prenatal care, what we do at the first prenatal care visit, is we screen women for every STD we know that could affect the baby. So a woman will have a pap smear. She will have a chlamydia, gonorrhea screen. She will be screened for HIV, hepatitis B, hepatitis C, syphilis. And if any of those diseases are detected in the pregnancy, they will be treated while the woman is pregnant.
And it will not hurt the fetus. If the treatments, I'm saying.
Most of the treatments will not hurt the fetus. So, for example, treatment for chlamydia and gonorrhea is safe in pregnancy. Women who have HIV, we give the mothers antivirals to help reduce transmission of the HIV virus to the baby, and have been very successful at that. Now, unfortunately, hepatitis B, we have a very good protocol. We don't treat the mother while she's pregnant with hepatitis B, but when the baby is born, the baby will be vaccinated for hepatitis B and get something called a hepatitis B immunoglobulin to help prevent transmission of the hep B to the baby.
Ugh.
Yeah, it's a lot of stuff.
Pregnant women, we get to add that on top of everything else. Let's switch from women who are younger, we're talking about pregnant women, to older women, say postmenopausal or women who are going through menopause. Are there any particular STDs that are more prevalent in that population?
There aren't any STDs that are more prevalent in the menopausal or postmenopausal population. The only thing is that women who are in that time frame of their lives, some of them, either their husbands have died or they've are recently divorced and they're out for the first time having sex with a new partner after many, many years. And so they just have to be careful that they don't get exposed to either herpes or HPV.
So you would recommend that older women who are having a new sexual partner bring that same checklist
Exactly.
along
They should
as
have the same.
ones.
They should have the same checklist, and they should be very careful because they're vulnerable. A lot of them haven't been out for a long time, and so I think they aren't as worried about STDs, and they really need to be worried about them.
Of course, they won't have to worry about contraceptions, which is the next subject I wanted to talk to you about. Some women who are taking birth control pills feel that that gives them a free pass on STDs. Are there any contraceptive devices that protect women from STDs?
The only contraceptive device that protects anyone from STDs is a condom. And even condoms aren't 100%. You can still have HIV, herpes, or HPV with a condom, but it's the best thing we have. All of the other forms of contraception which help prevent pregnancy don't have a mechanism to prevent transmission of STDs. So when I'm putting a woman on birth control, if she's out there for the first time, I also want her to use condoms and an oral contraceptive pill at the same time.
So just go back to HPV for one last
HPV is
time.
confusing.
It's a big subject
Yeah.
too. And I think the biggest question is there a cure for it, or does a woman have it in her system for the rest of her natural life?
That's a question that we don't really have the answer for. What we believe happens with HPV is that a woman is exposed to it and her body has to fight it off, just like when you get a cold or a flu. And the body is supposed to fight off the HPV, and the HPV is supposed to be eradicated from her body. Now, there are some women who never officially clear the HPV in their body, and those are people who are carriers of HPV, and those women are at the greatest risk for getting cervical cancer. Now, if you have HPV and you have changes in your cervix that are significant, what we call either moderate or severe dysplasia, we actually have a treatment where we remove part of the cervix so that new cells will grow back that aren't affected with HPV, and that helps prevent cervical cancer.
But for those women, they would find that out and get that treatment only if they're, say, at an annual exam.
Exactly.
But it grows slowly, so if you wait a whole year or 6 months,
You're okay.
you are okay.
Yeah.
We've covered a lot of material today about STDs, and I'm just wondering if there's anything else women should know about sexually transmitted diseases.
I think the important thing to realize is that men aren't the bad guys. There are a lot of diseases that they carry that they may not know, specifically HPV, that's the big one, but also in some cases herpes. So the man doesn't know that he has the disease, and unless you know for sure that he's been tested, you have to assume that he could potentially infect you. So until a man has been cleared of any STDs, it really is important to assume that every potential person that you're with could give you something, and you should protect yourself with condoms.
Dr. Bohn, thank you so much for joining me today. And as always, be sure to check with your doctor before beginning any new health regimen. For more information, visit our Women's Health Center at www.lifescript.com. From Los Angeles, I'm Diane Wedner.